Welcome, good people, to Sports Cards Anonymous. This is a channel where we have conversations about cards, and this is the slow burn. I have great conviction in the sports card hobby right now. This is the most conviction I've ever had, conviction and confidence I've ever had in the sports card hobby. 25 years, 27 years, something like that. I've never seen anything like this. I think we are going through a significant change in the hobby where people are viewing sports cards less as some niche thing that some people do as a hobby and more as a true alternative asset, somewhere where you can park more money as a store of value and it could maybe appreciate. And I think that particular change is largely driven because the millennial generation is coming of age and they view these items, that generation, views these items as fine art. We may not say it, it may not specifically be stated that way, but I do think that's how we view them, and that's what I'm going to talk through today. So, starting off with the fine art bit. As far as I know, all of human history, people, when they got money, what do they go do? They go buy stuff and hang it in their house. It could be antiques, could be fine china, grandfather clocks for forever. In Southern America, I don't know if that was a thing in Northern America, but it was in Southern America. History is littered with all these rich dudes out in Europe finding all this art, putting it up on the wall, showing it to people. It's a status symbol. It's not only I can afford it, but I found it. I found it and I can afford it, or conquered it, or stole it, or whatever it is I did. I went out and found it. I got it on the wall. I got it to show. Makes me feel good. Makes you feel bad because I got it. It's a status symbol. History filled with that, littered with it. Last 20, 30 years, I don't know. I don't know what the status symbol was for most people. I guess the whole keeping up with the Joneses era. So it might be a car, might be a house, all these sorts of things. But I think my generation, I think millennials are landing on sports cards. And, well, I should say cards. Sports cards, Pokemon, TCG, collectibles, etc. I think we are obviously landing on cards are our fine art. We can show them off on Instagram, on YouTube, wherever else. You can hang them in your house. We've got displays, massive displays. Everyone talks about how good the hobby's been. I bet getting in the card display business 10 years ago, I bet you're doing all right. I bet that was a good business to get into. And as it becomes more and more accepted, more and more people know what it is. You know, it's one thing when you've got a lot of cards and you're like, I know I have a great collection. But you can't show it to anybody because nobody knows anything about cards because it's so niche. But it is seeing massive adoption. It is becoming mainstream. And then so because of that, I think it will continue to adopt its persona as fine art as more and more people become, comfortable with it because it feels less niche and they think more people are getting into it. What I think is really driving this, I think the core of what's driving this is Pokemon cards. I talked about it before, right? We've seen the timeline, right? Cards in general, sports cards, they started to see a run up in 2018, 19. COVID went ballistic. Then we kind of went into a bear market, and I think we're seeing a little bit of a resurgence right now, a strong resurgence with real legs. I think that we're in the midst of a 20-year run here, 20-year bull market for sports cards and other cards in general. And I think we're at the beginning, and what's fueling it right now is Pokemon. Now, of course, sports cards are doing really well right now. But when I say fueling it, what's fueling the market sentiment, this bullish sentiment, is Pokemon. I think what has happened is that what we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years, Pokemon's done incredibly well. 3, 4, 5x across the board. I mean, just all of Pokemon has done that well. And so you have a lot of people who made money doing that. You had a lot of people who chased the hype and are still kind of making money, right? They're not doing too bad either. And so what this is creating in the market is confidence and I already said it once and it has escaped me. Confidence and conviction. It is creating confidence and conviction. Because the longer that Pokemon does well, I mean, the bull market for Pokemon has been quite long now. I mean, a few years plus. As it continues to do well, and it has a track record of doing well too, it is building confidence in the people buying into it and the people even looking at it. They say, oh my goodness, it just keeps going up, keeps going up, keeps going up. It's buying confidence. It's building confidence. I think it's creating real confidence. I don't think this is some sort of bubble confidence where, oh my goodness, look at prices and how crazy they've gone over the last 3 months. I hope that dog doesn't get skunked again. He got skunked last week. It was awful. Odin, don't be messing with them skunks. I don't want to deal with that. It's building that confidence. And, I think real structural confidence. And I guess that leads to the second C word there, conviction. The longer it does well, that confidence builds and it turns into conviction. You know that this is good. You know that it's something you want. You know that it's something you want to be a part of. And I think that all that has happened in Pokemon, and it is igniting the spark across the rest of the card world. Obviously, in sports cards, we're seeing that, right? I think other TCGs are due. I think Yu-Gi-Oh is going to see it. I think Dragon Ball Z might see it. Magic the Gathering, of course. I think we will see it across the board because my generation, the millennials, are adopting this as their fine art. And they will not be limited to only Pokemon or sports cards. They will adopt everything. They're going to adopt what they were nostalgic about. What are their key memories from childhood? What are the things they still find interesting that still ignite a spark in them? And I think you're going to see wide adoption. And it makes me pretty excited. I think there's still a ton of opportunity in the market, whether it's in sports cards or in TCGs or CCGs. I think, like I said, we're at the beginning of a 20-year bull run. And it's because, right, millennials are just now entering their peak earning years. I was born in 91, so I just turned 35. Millennial. So I guess there's probably still some millennials who are technically 30, I guess. So, you got millennials aged, I guess, 30 to 50, something like that. There's a lot of money millennials are going to keep pouring into this stuff. And, I don't know exactly when the cutoff was for millennials. I don't know if they're 50 right now or 45 at the top end of the millennial spectrum. But again, these markets are gaining more confidence and more momentum. So, the 30 and the 35-year-old millennials, as we keep getting older, we're just going to keep buying. And I think a lot of this stuff, I have really seen a shift in the market. The market is moving away from flipping and it is moving into vaulting. And as part of vaulting, what it is, people are buying cards that they think meet the stunning standard that I like to talk about, right? Cards that really ignite happiness in them. And they're locking those cards away. I'm going to hang on to this for 3, 4, 5 years. They're being a lot smarter with their purchases. And they're digging through and they really understand, much deeper than they did 5 years ago, what kind of cards they're looking for. So they're finding those cards and they're putting them away. And the supply is drying up. I mean, it is drying up. All the stuff that I've been looking for, if you go look at sales history, it's laughably low 6 to 12 months ago. And it's just not now. And it's not because this stuff is being vaulted. People are buying this stuff and vaulting it. And again, I don't know. I do think if you look across the hobby, that the conversation generally has changed. Of course, 5 years ago, everyone was talking about flipping. Every video was 5 cards to pick up this week. 5 cards to flip. You don't see a lot of that content anymore. Now, you see a lot of the collector content. You see a lot of big cards. You see a lot of stuff being held. You're seeing a lot of people chew on the question of what is really special. What is really going to stand out from this era, right? What is the cards I really want to hold 5 and 10 years from now? Interesting on that too. I asked you all in a community post, if you had to spend $5,000 on one card today and you had to lock it away for 20 years, you wouldn't be able to sell it for 20 years. And in 20 years someday, you would sell it. What kind of card would you buy? Coming in second place was a nice patch auto. But in first place with like 55, 57% of the votes was a high-grade vintage rookie card, rookie Hall of Fame card. I was really surprised by that. I mean, I was really surprised. I thought we were going to see a pretty big run there on the patch autos. But still a lot of belief in vintage Hall of Fame rookies. Now, one thing you should know if you're watching this, my audience, the audience here on the channel, is like 99.9% millennial males, right? It's males aged like 30 to 55. That is, I mean, I'm not kidding you. It is nearly 100%. So they just find it interesting that even yet still, millennial generation that watches this channel would vote for, the Hall of Fame rookie in a high grade, the vintage Hall of Fame rookie in a high grade. So I thought that was pretty interesting. For me, it's the patch autos. I've talked about it quite a bit. I think the patch autos are wonderful. And let's hit into that. So fine art. I keep saying that I think cards are fine art. There's a lot of artistry that goes into cards. And I think some people kind of scoff at that because they think of cards as, manufactured and, high print run, low scarcity. They think all these things. If you like Pokemon, if you can envision the base Charizard in your head, the base, shadowless or first edition or unlimited, doesn't matter. You can see that artwork. You can see that hollow pattern. You can see that card vividly. That is an image. That is a card. That is a piece of art that's ingrained in our heads as a lot of, Pokemon collectors. And it's a wonderful piece of art. Somebody drew that Charizard. Somebody designed that card. There's a lot of effort that went into building that card, making it look the way it does. It is a piece of art. I think they call it multimedia art when it's got, some different aspects to it. And going over to sports cards the same way, guys. I'm pretty excited. I'll be doing my February 2nd collection. I'll be showing off a lot of Astros cards in there. I've got a beautiful card in there. I'm not going to give it away, but BGO's on the card. And the card's just so well done. It's a great image that they picked of BGO, so they have to go find great photography, and they've got to clean it up, make it look good on the card. There's an auto and a patch on there. They have to design on that to make it look good. It's one thing to pick valuable cards, go nuts. But it's another to pick valuable cards that look really nice, that are stunning pieces, that meet the stunning standard, right? There's a lot of cards worth a lot of money out there. But picking the cards that really, stop you in your tracks and make you go, man, that was a nice card. That's a very nice card. Well designed, thought out. It's got nice attributes, a lot of depth, a lot of different pieces of the card that you like. Those are hard to find, and that is really what's drying up. I'm really seeing that stuff go away. I slept on 2010 Flawless and Immaculate, the National Treasures, for too long. Those are special cards, and they're going away now. Panini they don't have the license, so we're going to stop getting those. Oh, well, you live and learn. All you can do is, I didn't buy it yesterday, didn't buy it today, but, I got to focus on it tomorrow. It's got to be my next thing I'm going for. So, all right. So 20 years, I think I kind of hit on that point too. I wanted to hit one more budget show. What did I have to say there? I forgot. But 20 years, millennials starting to hit their main earning years. I think you're going to see a lot of money from that group just kind of naturally go into cards. Budget show. The other thing I wanted to mention. I don't know if you ever watched this YouTube channel. I forget what it's called. Caleb Hammer, something like that. Financial audits. He always audits these people, and they just got horrible finances. I mean, always. A lot of times it's couples. I mean, it's pretty trashy television, to be honest with you. And the couples, 10 out of 10 times, the guy is buying Pokemon cards on credit. I mean, it looks pretty bad. I bring this up because, I think we're at the beginning of a 20-year bull run in cards. Sports cards, Pokemon, CCGs, all this stuff from the 90s and 2000s and 2010. I think we're on a 20-year run right now. At the very beginning of it. The question is always, is it a bubble? All right. Bubbles are generally created by debt or anomalies, some way, somehow. But I watch these audit shows, and every single guy that goes on there is, up to his eyeballs and then some in credit card debt because he's buying Pokemon cards at Target and ripping it. So, is there a debt problem in cards? I don't think so. I think maybe in COVID there was. I don't think there is anymore. I do think a lot of people that make bad financial decisions, a lot of millennial men who make bad financial decisions, probably are buying cards they can't afford or they shouldn't be buying. But I don't think that is the majority of the market. I think the market is very stable and secure right now. And I mean, I guess if I can give anecdotal evidence to that, I mean, sellers are not budging. They're happy with their prices. They're happy with their cards. All these great cards. I'm having a hard time getting sellers to move. And I think that's probably the proof in the pudding that I have, that there's not a lot of debt behind these cards. I think we have a very solid foundation. I think we have demand that is obviously increasing, and I think it is about to spark into an inferno. And I think we've got a 20-year runway of high demand and high wages of the people who are interested in it. So I think we're at the beginning of a long run of goodness for sports cards, Pokemon cards, other CCGs. I think it's going to be fueled by millennials. And at its core, I think it's being fueled by the idea that cards are fine art, that it's okay to have cards, it's okay to show them off. It's actually a status symbol to show off nice cards, and it's becoming more socially acceptable. And that is going to continue to fuel this, because if that keeps building, it continues to build confidence and conviction, and you will continue to see these higher sales, these bigger sales. And that's the other thing too, so much money. Tech bros have so much money. They like this stuff, man. Those were the homies who love some Pokemon and some Dragon Ball Z, and they love their sports cards and betting on sport and all this stuff. They love all that stuff, man. So you're not going to convince me that that market's going to die off. I think there's a lot of strength in this market. I have never ever bought into the idea that cards are an alternative asset, and I still can't bring myself quite that far. I still can't say that. But they obviously are performing well, and I think they will maintain very strong demand for 2 decades. So, I'm going to start rambling now. A little bit of a jive session here at the end. That's the meat and potatoes. I get into some other stuff. What I got on my notes here. Some other things I wanted to talk about. I had a pretty interesting experience last weekend. Yeah. There was a trade night as part of Topps Rips Packs Across America night. I don't know what it was. So I go to this trade night. I bring my trade box. Got everything marked. Go in there. They got like 50 tables set. I shouldn't say 50. Probably 25 tables set up. It was pretty cool. I got there early. And somebody whispered to me, they're like, hey, you should just go grab a table because it ends up being like a show anyway. And I didn't really know what they meant. And I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. So I walked around. So everybody was just setting up at tables and had their cards out. And, I never been to a trade night. It's my first one. So I thought you'd walk around and you'd say, hey, you got any cards, I might be interested. And you look at somebody's cards and you would converse. And then, you'd find a deal or not. But that's not how it works. It operates just like a show, man. People walk to the tables and they look what's out there. So I got there early. There was one table left. And I said, I was debating going home because I had looked at every card that was out. I was debating on going home or setting up at that table. And I was like, I'll just take the table for like 30 minutes and see what happens. So I accidentally became a dealer for about 3 hours, and it was my first time ever dealing. A lot of lessons learned in that. I might drop a video on that. I might do a second video this week. I might do it on the weekend. Because there was an interesting clip that Dustin Sports Cards dad shared about the buyer and a seller at a show, and they were going at it. The seller didn't like that the homie was looking at comps so much. The homie didn't like that the seller was not looking at comps so much. It's an interesting discussion. I do think it's a point of friction in the hobby that I'd like to talk about a little bit more. One thing, if you're still here, one thing I left off, I meant to say, is how do we navigate If we're in the middle, if we're at the beginning, if we are at the beginning of a 20-year bull run in sports cards, Pokemon cards, Dragon Ball Z, and so on, how do you leverage the fact that you're here collecting now into building a nice collection that 20 years down the line you're going to be happy with, right? And it's everything we talk about on the channel. Scope of collection. You need to understand your scope of collection. What story are you trying to tell with your collection? What is it you're trying to collect? And only focus on cards that fit inside that scope, because everything else is noise pulling you away, right? The more you allow the story to be spontaneous buys because you're watching something on YouTube and it's pulling your brain away and your purchases follow, the more your collection is going to be all over the place and not tell a cohesive story. I try to visualize this. You got two guys and they walk up to you and they show you their sports cards collection. Both have 50 cards. The guy one has 50 cards worth, I don't know, $50,000. Guy two has 50 cards worth $25,000, half the price. Guy one pulls out, guy one pulls out a card. It's a Steph Curry patch card. Okay, cool. The next card's a Kobe. The next card's a Brady. The next card's an Elway. The next card's an Emmett. The next card's a Mariano Rivera. Then a Jeter. Then an Alex Rodriguez. Then a McGuire. Then a Bonds. Then a Griffey. It's all these legends across all these sports. And it's a mixed match. Some are rookies. Some are patches. Some are refractors. He shows you that collection. He's like, that's my collection, right? So you look at this collection that he has. And guy two, he's got 50 cards, and it's all fat guys. 50 offensive linemen. Every one of them's a Hall of Famer or current All-Pro. Everyone's a rookie, and every one of them signed. Maybe it's hand-signed, or maybe it's pack pulled. But it's 50 of those. Now, which collection is better? And to me, it's guy number two. It's the guy with the 50 fat guys. Because it's a cohesive story, man. When you're just buying like just all the legends, buy all the legends. You know, you got Griffey and you got Jim Brown and Namath, and like individually each card is awesome, but when you put it together, the sum of the parts is well, how's the saying go? The sum of the parts is less than the whole, right? I don't know. It's the other way around, but the sum of the parts, the whole is less than the sum of the parts. There we go. The whole is less than the sum of the parts. But the other guy, you got the 50 fat guys. This is an obvious collection. You know this guy put in a lot of work to put this together, and it tells a cohesive story. And that's a great collection. So stick to your scope of collection. The stunning standard. I love that. I love the phrase, the stunning standard. I'm a big fan of that. You got to stick to the stunning standard. If you're just picking up nonsense, what's the old saying? A small leak will sink a great ship. If you're buying $15 and $20 cards that you don't really want continually, it will sink your ship. It will sink your collection. The fact that you're here collecting now will not matter, even though we're at the beginning of a 20-year bull run, because you let these small purchases consume you. You let them wreck what could be a great collection. And I'm not saying you can't buy small cards. What I'm saying is it's easier to get sidetracked by $15 and $20 cards and buy 7 of them at a time instead of buying one $150 card that's kind of off your track a little bit, right? It's easy to buy 7 cards you don't really want when they're $10 and $15. It's a lot harder to buy one card for $80 that you don't really want. So those little cards, they can wreck your wreck your collection, right? They can wreck your museum. They can steal your budget, the budget that should be set aside for great cards that fit your scope of collection, that meet the stunning standard. They're going to steal that budget. That light turned off. I hope this one doesn't. And ruin your collection. Then finally, tying all that together, build the museum. Keep the eye on the prize. You're building a museum. You're telling a story. You're curating a collection. Cards that meet the stunning standard. Cards that are inside of my scope of collection. If I'm doing that, I'm building the museum. I'm going to have a great collection. So over 20 years' time, if we are at the beginning of a great bull run here, keep your eye on the prize. Stick to your scope of collection. Buy cards that meet your stunning standard. Always be building your museum. And, you know, you're going to take advantage of the fact that you're here when others aren't yet. All right. I think that's most of what I had to say now. I left that one off and it was bothering me. So it was a rough night, y'all. Rough night. Mrs. went out to dinner. I was left at home with the 2 girls. My infant, she's sick, has a bad fever, like 100 degrees, pooped on herself, threw up in her bed. Miserable. It was a miserable night. I'm exhausted. Brain's a little foggy, man. The last thing I'm going to say, I built this, I got this website going. I call it the Sports Cards Anonymous Hub. Call it whatever you want. Sports Cards Anonymous website. I'll link it down below. I'm going to start building a newsletter. And if you're interested, you know, go check it out. It's free. Go check out the newsletter. The whole point of me doing YouTube, I want a ledger. I want a ledger of what it is I'm doing. I have a lot of show notes. I really prep for my videos. I didn't used to do this. You know, it's much different than it used to be. And I kind of like writing this stuff a little bit. I thought, you know, maybe I'll put together a newsletter. So it'll be my thoughts about kind of where the hobby is. And it's just going to be a little bit more nuanced and deep, I think. Because when I go writing, I don't know. I kind of like the way that it comes out. So newsletter is going to be there. Feel free to check it out. I have some other stuff in there too. Of course, my personal stuff. And I don't have one up yet. I just have like kind of a welcome, you know, nice, thanks for subscribing. But, you know, first one will come out here in the next couple weeks. So I appreciate all your time. I appreciate y'all sticking around, watching this video if you're here at the end. I will do a video about the dealer thing. I almost got into it here, but I want to do a standalone video. I think it's a very interesting topic. So I want to talk about that separately. Then I got my collection video will be coming out soon. I'm really enjoying the hobby, y'all. Hobby, it's a good space right now. I think there's a ton of great cards out there that are available that we can pick up. And I don't know that we're going to be able to pick them up in 5 years. So keep my eye out. If I can give one more piece of advice here, something that works for me, because I just said there's a ton of cards out there. Go find them. I use eBay as a surgical tool. I'm looking for these 10 specific cards. I have these 10 safe searches. That's what I look for. Because if I don't do that, it very quickly becomes a trap where you're looking for everything. I started going to one show a month, and that's been a fantastic outlet for me to go see other cards, right? So I'm surgical on eBay, but that spontaneous, what's available is happening at card shows. It's limited. You only get to see so many cards, unlike eBay, which is always infinite. And so it scratches the itch of, I want to peruse some stuff that I'm not necessarily looking for specifically right now, while also protecting me from the dark side of eBay, which is perusing it for hours because there's infinite deals to be had. So, all right. Like I've said that before, but it's an important point. I want to keep reiterating it. I don't know, man. The phone, this stinking phone, man, it can be a trap. They lure you in, man. There's so much engineering and technology and motivation behind the phone makers and the app makers, and they know how to trap us in there. And, you know, spend time with your family, spend time with your loved ones. That's enough of all that preaching stuff, but I appreciate y'all. I hope y'all have a good rest of your week. And until next time, my friends, as always, keep collecting.